Welcome to the first episode of this new piece of content I'm putting out, King's Speech, Episode 1. This is going to be a podcast where if there's news over this off season where it's not worth giving a short form video, there's other topics to talk about in baseball, I'm just going to talk about it every week. It's also going to help me break down series when the season starts. So this is going to be my way of just giving you more long form content to break down the stuff I don't record about. I'm pretty excited about this. Hopefully you are too. Hit that like button. Let's get into it. First topic, Blake Snell is asking astronomical amounts of money. The Yankees gave him an offer of $150 million. He came back and said no. He wants 9 years, $270 million. I see that, and look, I'm one of these guys on this app. I want to be one of the Blake Snell hype trains, right? I want to be one of those guys because I do think he's really talented. I think he would be a pretty good fit here. But if you're asking for that type of money, I was thinking going into a deal with Blake Snell, if you were able to get him at 200 and save the 100 off of Yamamoto's deal, that was cool. Paying $270 million for a guy like Blake Snell, who, yes, has had years of winning the Cy Young. He now has 2, and his most recent year is a Cy Young. But he also has years in the middle where they are not below average, but he can be slightly above average for years in between. You do not want a guy who's slightly above average for years in between a deal where there's 9 years, $270 million on the board. If you were to come back and be like, well, Yamamoto got this deal. He didn't pitch to a single batter in Major League Baseball. Why doesn't Blake Snell deserve 270? It's because he's also on the older side. He's already 31 years old. You want them to be paying a 9-year, $270 million deal for a guy who will be 40 in the last year of his deal. 40! There was a reason why Aaron Judge did not get the $500 million Juan Soto's going to get. There's a reason these things happen. It's because of age. Blake Snell's already hit. He's going into the back end of his prime. This is not a guy worth $270 million. Yamamoto is around age 25, 26. Him being 25 or 26, you can understand them shilling him money because he will be in his prime the whole contract. Shohei Ohtani will be in his prime for that entire contract. You are getting Blake Snell heading out of his prime. You lost out on your prime years when you're playing in San Diego. For Blake Snell to be asking for this. Now, I do think the Yankees are playing this very well. Saying, yeah, we're off of him. Even if you wanted to get him, you are playing this well. Because look, if you're really done, then you know what? I don't have a problem with that. That is just far too much, and I don't know if there's much of a middle ground there that even makes sense, because if you meet in the middle of both of their deals, I don't think Blake Snell even comes close to accepting it. But if you ramp up the pressure on him, right? The Yankees are the only team to offer him a legitimate contract. Other teams have shown interest. No one has given him a sheet of paper and said, sign here. The Yankees have. No one else has, and pitchers and catchers report in 2 or 3 weeks. That's how close we are at this point. He cannot be sitting here dilly-dallying on this deal because he's going to run out of time till spring training. And once spring training comes, if you lose out on spring training, you could have a season like Carlos Rodon. Because once you get into free agency, he's probably going to have to sign a prove-it deal at that point. Because he's not going to get 270. So for the Yankees to say, okay, we're done, it ramps up the pressure. And he might even pull a Marcus Stroman. Come to the Yankees and say, look, you're the only team to offer me a deal. Let's work something out. And maybe they can work in the middle or closer to the Yankees side because the Yankees at that point have all the leverage. Get it to around 180 to 200. If that's the case, I am so in on this deal. But over $250 million for this dude is a little overboard. And look, like I said, if the Yankees play their cards and they don't get him, I'm not against that either. Look, I know we don't have the best depth in our starting rotation, but There are some exciting prospects coming through the system. We still have Will Warren. We still have Luis Heel. Could start in that 5th spot. Will Warren has nasty stuff. I don't know if he's consistent enough to really get that starting spot. I love what I saw out of Luis Heel. That man throw the ball. Again, he has to find some consistency. That's a lot of these younger guys. You have to find consistency in them. But if Luis Heel can find some consistency, I saw with my own eyes the talent this guy has. He has movement on movement on movement on his pitches. This man could flat out pitch. And with that type of talent, if they can find a way to sort of try and max out that potential, because right now it's very raw. It's very raw. You were able to polish it up a little bit, sort of max that thing out. He may become an X factor on this team. If you still are under the assumption that we need a pitcher, I think it would be okay to go into the season with a Luis Heel or a Will Warren or someone like that to start. And then by trade deadline, or even earlier than that if we are struggling, to say, okay, now we got to go to Milwaukee. Or now we got to go to, because if we go to Milwaukee, Corbin Burnes, I think, is on a contract year. If you were to go to them and be like, hey, we can give you some prospects, give us Corbin Burnes, great in-season acquisition. It doesn't look like they're going to trade him before the season starts, where a lot of fans are frustrated by that, but it gives the opportunity for the Yankees to see if a Will Warren can pan out. See if a guy like Luis Heel can figure out how to stay consistent. See how bad the rotation actually is. Because if the rotation actually isn't that bad, and the Yankees offense pans out the way we think it's going to, having a Verdugo, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Gleyber Torres offense, we may not need that 5th starter. We may just be able to hit the cover off the ball because they are also going up against the other team's worst starter most nights. If we're out on Blake Snell, I'm not totally upset. I'm kind of on the side of like, damn. Hal Steinbrenner said he wants to go back to the evil empire. That would have been an evil empire move. I do understand he's asking for something astronomically too much for this Yankees team because we do have to re-sign Soto. He's going to cost $50 million a year. We cannot afford to lose Soto this next offseason. So this deal would have hindered that. Good riddance. And we move on. Now, we move on to another report of possibly Cody Bellinger having interest from the Yankees staff. This is another one of those evil empire type moves. If we actually were to go out and sign Cody Bellinger, right now, I don't know what the market is on Bellinger. It seems like the Cubs are the most likely landing spot, but it's been really weird with him. He was supposed to be a shoo-in to be a Yankee. A lot of people predicted it. And then we went out and got Juan Soto. We went out and got Alex Verdugo, and we kind of just let him be. No other teams have really come in and even shown interest, according to insiders, because there's been no reports on him. He was in Toronto a couple days. I don't know what that was all about. I don't know if the Toronto Blue Jays actually talked to him. Even then, it's really weird, the market for Cody Bellinger. And I actually understand it because his market is so weird at the moment because he's a former MVP coming off of one of the best seasons that he's had since that MVP season. The problem is those years before that. He forgot how to hit for 3 years. 3 years. And then finally found his stroke in Chicago. It's probably why Chicago should be the landing spot for him. But you would have thought there would have been some market. But he's probably asking for former MVP type money. 9 figures. And I don't blame him for that. He is a guy who was supposed to be an elite of the elite. Back in 2019, when he won his MVP, he was one of the best players in baseball. That man could not be touched. Ever since then, it's been a roller coaster ride, mostly drifting downhill. He finally got his uptick. I think his market would be a lot more stable if he had one more year. He had one more year of consistency. That would show people, okay, this guy is actually back. This is not just a one-off thing. Because that's the concern of giving him a 9-figure deal. Was this just a one-off year where everything sort of clicked and you're going to go back to it's going to go back to a pumpkin, right? Is this like a Cinderella story, or are you actually going to maintain this? And I don't know if Cody Bellinger would want to go into another prove it deal, because he just proved it. It's hard to tell a guy who just went into sort of a prove it situation and tell him you're going to need to do it again. But if you're a team, I don't know another way. Unless he's willing to take a shorter AAV deal over that stretch of time he wants, there's no real other way going about that contract, because it seems like teams are on completely different planets. One side sees him as, you're the MVP. You're a guy who at one point was the best player in the National League, coming off of one of the best seasons he's had since. That deserves money. On another side, it's, this is business. We're not looking at what you did in the past. We're looking at what you're going to do. That going is going to be a problem. He has not shown an ability to maintain. And if the Yankees do end up with him, this would be a power move. And I would be concerned, but I'd also be excited. Cautiously excited, because we don't know where Anthony Rizzo is at the moment. He's coming off of post-concussion syndrome. Head injuries are always a tough one to gauge. It seems like he's fully healthy. It seems like he's fully back. But the way he capped off 2023 was concerning. He is up there in age. I just am concerned about whether or not he is 100% back to being Anthony Rizzo. If he is not, and we had Cody Bellinger, there would be a simple solution to what you would do there. First portion of the season, you would have him platoon in center field, and then for a majority of the season, if Anthony Rizzo is not back, you put him in at first base and you let Anthony Rizzo be the primary bat off the bench. That is what you would have to do. And right now, with these moves the Yankees did earlier this offseason, it becomes even tougher, because we already do have a platoon for center field. And now we have a plan of putting Judge in center field. At some point, if we did sign Cody Bellinger, where the fuck are these guys going to play? At that point, you're probably throwing Verdugo on the bench if you had Bellinger. It would probably be Bellinger, Soto, Judge in the field. You have Stanton as the DH, and that's not going to change. So that keeps one spot stable. It's probably Bellinger in left if he's not playing first, Soto in right, Judge in center. Verdugo's now on the bench. And if you wanted to throw Bellinger in center or throw Bellinger at first, it still leaves, like, where are some of these guys going to play? You're almost running out of slots. It is an awkward fit if we did sign Bellinger. And especially when Dominguez comes back, it creates even more of a logjam. Because already when Dominguez comes back, we will have a logjam. Because if right now it's Verdugo, it's Judge, and it's Soto. And then you have Grisham coming off the bench to platoon with whoever's in center. Well, now you have Jason Dominguez, who either off of Tommy John surgery will either come off the bench and platoon instead of Grisham, or he'll be the everyday guy and Verdugo's going to go to the bench. So you're already going to have a logjam at that spot. It's hard to tell Cody Bellinger you're going to come in to a not very free spot. We don't know where to put you. If you're going to sign a guy like that, you're going to have to know where the fuck to put him. If you were to sign Cody Bellinger, to me that would show that there is a sign of regression from Anthony Rizzo, and they are preparing for that. That's all a time will tell sort of situation. To me, it's confusing, but I would be open to the idea, because again, having too much talent is a not good problem to have, but it's better than not having talent at all. So I wouldn't be against it. I would probably hedge towards no because of the logjam. It just becomes too much. Bellinger would be another good lefty bat and would probably let Stanton even go to the bench at times. But you're not signing a guy like Bellinger to platoon or to share time. Bellinger's the type of guy that you play him to be a primary position player. In some smaller stories before we get to our final topic, the Yankees have shown interest in two players, one being Noah Syndergaard. Not really going to touch on that. A former who's fallen off a cliff. He would be somewhat good depth, not really a difference maker, but this next guy I have some opinions on. That is Matt Chapman. Matt Chapman, another guy that I am very confused on in terms of his market. I would have thought that his market would be pretty astronomical, knowing the defense he can provide, along with the fact that he has a pretty good bat. I don't know if players this offseason, as a collective, are choosing to overvalue themselves or what's going on, because nothing has come out about Matt Chapman and his market. He has legitimately no market. The Yankees have shown interest. Again, there's no offer sheets coming out. There's literally nothing. Now, for the Yankees, I believe if we got Matt Chapman, that is the solution for third base. Like I said, one of the best gloves in baseball in terms of third base, which is probably the most important position for us to patch up. Because right now, if we're slotted to have DJ there, DJ's biggest weakness in the field is that he is not equipped to play third base. Matt Chapman is the most equipped to play third base, other than Nolan Arenado, in the league right now. A guy who can give you production. He would be a guy who's near the middle of the order. That's a guy that I would seriously show interest in if we're trying to become this all elite perfect team. We have a hole, we patch hole. That should be the mentality at this point. Is you see a hole, you see a fix, you fix that hole. Matt Chapman has killed the Yankees over the past couple years while he's been in Toronto. We know him as well as anyone in baseball. This man is a menace. And if he were to play in the Bronx, this is a guy that would become a fan favorite quick. Again, because of his defense. Look, you can never fully predict what a player's going to do in the Bronx. We would have thought that Josh Donaldson would have been a lot better. We didn't expect much out of Gio Urshela. But if he gave us even like 80% of the offense that he gave to Toronto, especially at the start of last year. The start of last year, he was on fire. He cooled off towards the latter half, but if he gives us 80% of what he did to start last year, this man will become one of the favorite players by Yankees fans due to the fact that he's one of those guys that, you know, your hardworking, middle-aged Yankee fan will love. He's not overly boisterous. He's not a guy who will showboat or do any of that stuff. He's a guy who's more of a put your head down and go to work, sort of like the old Yankee way. This offseason, we've gotten players that have gone away from that, right? Juan Soto with his Soto shuffle. He had some antics in the World Series when he won it. This is not a guy who's just going to put his head down. And then you have Marcus Stroman, as the memes will say, is one of George Steinbrenner's worst nightmares. But again, these are also guys that will help. Like, the Yankees have to become a statement of what New York is, right? New York is a melting pot. New York, you have every single race, every single ethnicity, everyone coming together, go do their job. That's what we need at this point. That's what Atlanta did to have such a good season last year. It's the fact that they have so many personalities. Like Ronald Acuna Jr. and Matt Olson are not the same. Ozzie Albies and Austin Riley, not the same. And now with the Yankees, Garrett Cole and Marcus Stroman, not really the same. Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, not really the same. But you know what? If they come together and they could perform, it makes this team even stronger. The fact that you have so many personalities coming together to fill one goal. Anyways, Matt Chapman would be going back to the Yankees' roots. He would be more of an Aaron Judge type. Grab your lunch pail, go to work. Be that guy to sort of keep the lineup in check, based off the fact that we would not have many holes, especially if Volpe and Wells were to progress in their development. There would be a lot less holes if we just got Matt Chapman to fill in for DJ. Let DJ be a platoon guy off the bench. You know, Glaber's not going to play every day. You know, Rizzo is getting older. You're going to need him to spot for Rizzo a couple days. That's where DJ's at his best. So when he is platooning for these spots, he is not equipped to be a primary third baseman. Matt Chapman is the guy who you would say, okay, that's a guy that I trust. I trust with 162 games that he will do an 8 out of 10 job every single night out. That's what you want out of these guys. He's in one of the most important positions on the field, the hot corner. You cannot have a guy who's not equipped to play it. And we saw last year how many mistakes DJ would make because his reflexes are just slower than a normal ass third baseman. Matt Chapman will not make any of those mistakes. Giving him a contract, again, I don't know what he's asking for. I can't really give you a baseline. But if his contract is reasonable and does not hinder us in the Juan Soto sweepstakes come 2024, the 2024 offseason, I should say, this is a must, almost. I'm not going to say it's a full-on must, but it's something I would heavily consider if I'm Hal Steinbrenner. Oh yeah, by the way, before I move on, another guy who is really raising his stock right now, one of my personal buddies, Yasiel Puig. Now, Yasiel Puig is playing in the Venezuelan Winter League and just won the championship and almost put that team on his back. He went viral last week for getting into a brawl with another team. Not his fault, but he did get viral for going through a brawl and then sent his team to the championship with a walk-off home run. This guy is getting interest. He kind of got blackballed from the league for a little bit for God knows what reason. I think this is sort of rejuvenating what people think about Yasiel. Some MLB teams have shown interest. I know the Rays showed interest at one point. The case for bringing Yasiel Puig in would be, you want a guy who has clutch postseason experience? Try 2018 against Boston when he was with LA. What gets more clutch than that home run? And that's up against a Boston team that a lot of people consider one of the better teams that they've seen. Sadly, because we're Yankees fans, obviously. That's one of the better teams have won World Series, and yet Yasiel Puig was able to help them go 6. That's the type of guy that you're coming into. The league wants to move more towards the let the kids play movement. Well, who spearheaded that? Who spearheaded that? It's Yasiel Puig. When he first came into the league with this brash personality, every home run he hit, he bat flipped and came into the league scorching hot. This is the type of guy who will raise a team's profile, but not even just that, brings a veteran leadership. I don't know if you guys remember when he was playing with Cincinnati. I went to Cincinnati to meet him and his family. Like, he is a really cool guy, but not just that. The fact that in Cincinnati, his last game there, the night he got traded, it wasn't even him that got into the brawl. Derek Dietrich and Amir Garrett sort of single-handedly spearheaded a brawl against the Pittsburgh Pirates. And who was in the middle of that, fighting for his teammates? It's Yasiel. And who's the one who's yelling at his teammates who stayed on the bench that all you guys have to get up? You guys have to fight for this team. It's Yasiel. He's a guy who people have labeled a locker room cancer in the past. Really, he's more of the absolute opposite. Listen to Derek Dietrich at times talk about Yasiel. He'll say, I'll never say a bad thing about him because he came to my defense. So I will not say bad things about that guy. That's called a great teammate. And that's a guy that you would want in your locker room. Again, does he fit in New York? No. Would I love him to come to New York? Yes. But again, even if he just gets back to the major leagues, that is a major success for him. And I am very proud of what he's done in Venezuela, showing against real major league talent what he can do. Let's talk about the Hall of Fame now. The 2024 Hall of Fame class decided on, and there are 4 people getting into the Hall of Fame. Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, Joe Mauer, manager Jim Leland. Now, notable players that were left off of this list, you had Andrew Jones, who is kind of getting spited because the end of his career kind of sucked. It kind of sucks for him that that's how things are going to work out for him. Gary Sheffield, in his final year on the ballot, does not get in. And I have a major problem with that. And then you have Billy Wagner, one of the best left-handed closers of all time, still not in the Hall of Fame. I hate this idea from voters. These guys can't get in some of the early years because they didn't earn it. Look, I think we should just toss out first ballot Hall of Famer to non-first ballot Hall of Famer. Those distinctions should be thrown out. If you belong in the Hall of Fame, you belong in the Hall of fucking Fame. Gary Sheffield deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. His stats are absolutely ridiculous. You compare him with Joe Mauer, Gary Sheffield's stats tremendously better. Voters like WAR. Gary Sheffield has a higher WAR. catcher's a position where WAR is higher because, it's a harder position to play. Now, did Joe Mauer deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Yes. And look, if we were going to make distinctions on like first ballot or not, did I think that Joe Mauer was one of those guys that should be in there with like the Derek Jeters and Marianos who got in first ballot? No, he's not on that tier, but guess what? I agree with him just getting in. I'm happy that he just got in and he didn't have to wait it out like a Gary Sheffield. And I think Gary Sheffield probably gets hurt by the fact that he played in the steroid era. The steroid era players, it really bugs me that actually pops up in terms of arguments to not put someone in. Not someone that was caught doing it, which I even think that people who were caught doing it deserve to be in. But that argument aside, I hate that people who are playing in that era and were never tested positive, that they get the label on them and then they don't get put in. And that's sort of what happened with Sheffield. I feel like it's just unfair to label someone in a way because of just the era they played in. To me, just not fair. It's not at all. Look, if you don't want to put in Bonds, Rodriguez, McGuire, Sosa, I understand that. Those guys popped. Those guys were proven guilty. 3 of those guys had to stand trial for Congress. Gary Sheffield did none of that. He had no allegation. And yet now he has to hope the freaking Veterans Committee or whatever they're called that put people in are going to at some point just appoint him into the Hall of Fame. But again, we don't know when that could happen. To me, it's not to label someone in a way without any evidence just because, he played in an era where a bunch of other people did it, so he obviously did it. No! It's just not the way it is. Other guys like Andrew Jones has a good case to be a Hall of Famer. He should be in. He more has a legitimate case of not being in, just based off the end of his career. I still don't think that's really valid because you shouldn't really be looking at guys at their worst. You should be looking at guys at their best. And I think Joe Mauer is a prime example of that. He had one of the best primes as a catcher that we've ever seen, and that's part of the reason he got in. But guys like Andrew Jones, he should be remembered as one of the best defensive outfielders of all time, and that alone should get him into the Hall of Fame. But anyways, going to Billy Wagner. Billy Wagner should have been in the Hall of Fame first ballot. It's kind of fucking ridiculous that he's not. And this is where I have to question the voter integrity and the type of voters that are allowed to have votes. What are we doing? The baseball writers of America should not have this much power to keep one guy off the list. I don't even know why he would be off the list. Like I said, he's probably the best left-handed closer of all time. He has an argument for second best closer of all time behind Mariano Rivera. And Mariano Rivera got in unanimously. If you're right behind that, he should have got in with 80% of the votes first ballot. Instead, he's now waiting, I think going into his 7th year, going into the latter stages of this Hall of Fame run, and you're going to have some heavy hitters coming into the Hall of Fame soon. It's going to get dicey for him, and it shouldn't be dicey for him. This is a guy with over 400 saves. 400 saves. There are probably 3 guys in baseball history that have that stat. 2 of them being Mariano Rivera and Billy fucking Wagner. I just don't understand the disrespect these voters give to some of these guys. The guys like Gary Sheffield, who as a hitter was one of the best hitters of a generation. And Billy Wagner, one of the best closers we've ever seen. Probably top 2. And he is 2. Mo is 1 by a bullet. In terms of the best of the rest, he's up there. And for him not to get in, it's kind of embarrassing for these voters that he is not in yet. I just wish there was a better way of doing this other than letting 60-year-old who at one point wrote about baseball vote on whether to recognize the best players in baseball as what they should be, which is the best of the best. Some of these guys had vendettas against these other guys. Like in football, there's no reason why Chad Ochocinco shouldn't have been first bat, or T.O. There's no reason why T.O. should not have been first ballot Hall of Famer. T.O. had to wait because people had vendettas against him. And again, the label of first ballot, I don't really love it, but again, it means something, and it also, these writers hold players off of being that first ballot because of vendettas. I hate that shit. If they're the best players of their generation, tell us they're the best players of their generation. Put them in the Hall, put them in Cooperstown, or in T.O.'s case, put them in Canton. Anyway, I just wish the Baseball Writers Association of America would have a little bit more integrity in terms of their voting, the way they handle voting. Anyways, before we go, I just want to get this off my chest. What the fuck is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. doing on this cover of MLB The Show 24? Look, I understand he is popular and he is playing for a team that has a whole country on his back. But the man has only had one elite season, and that was that 2019 season where he was battling Shohei Ohtani for that MVP. Of course, Shohei Ohtani beat him out. To say that Vlad has done enough to be on the cover is just, you have guys like Ronald Acuna Jr. broke records. The first ever 40-70 season. Man had 70 stolen bases. Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to be the type of guy that is getting disrespected now, and when he's gone, there's going to be so many people who wish they didn't miss out on this greatness, because this record should have been plastered, almost like the way Shohei Ohtani was this offseason. This record should have been plastered on billboards. This record should have been plastered all over social media. This should have been talked about. It's rarely talked about anymore. Ronald Acuna Jr. is a one-of-a-kind player. One of the best players probably this generation will ever see. There's guys like Shohei and Aaron Judge, and Ronald Acuna is right up there with the guys like Mookie Betts. And players like that, these are guys that you cannot take for granted. And I think we're taking a guy like Ronald for granted. I know there's like a 3-year policy for like any cover for them to reappear on a cover. And he was on some like sideshow app for Major League Baseball. I don't give a fuck about that. When a guy breaks a record like that, you bend some of the rules to get this guy more publicity. That's how you grow the fucking game. Is get this guy who is doing shit we've never seen before noticed by the world instead of safeguarding it. Anyways, after going on that tangent, hopefully you enjoyed the first episode. Again, just something I wanted to do to sort of get some of these smaller stories that I didn't want to just record a singular video for. The short form videos are not going away. Again, this is just for the topics that I don't deem video worthy are going to be thrown here, at least for the off season. Once spring training comes and once the regular season comes, podcast form will be more for series breakdowns and ways to look at prospects, whatever we're going to talk about. That's what it'll be for once the season starts. But hopefully you enjoyed this first episode. If you did, leave a like down below. If you're new here, hit that sub button. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.